Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all our viewers on Money Control. Thank you so much for tuning in for this very special discussion at 7 p.m. today. The most important and the most awaited event of this week, the Reliance Industries AGM, finally concluded earlier today, and we're here to discuss. To decode and to slice and dice the key takeaways, to answer all the relevant questions about from an investor standpoint and from a corporate business standpoint. Let's welcome aboard Mr. Naveen Kulkarni from Axis Securities. He joins us live to help us understand the key takeaways better. Naveen, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
First things first, let's talk about the mega announcements that were made. All bases were covered, whether it's O2C business, their deal with Aramco, whether it's Geo and the plans and developments that are taking place with respect to 5G. What was the key highlight for you? What was the main announcement or the main takeaway today?
See, the biggest announcement today was the capex plans for the Gigafactory. Clearly, right? So they have announced close to 60,000 crores plus another 15,000 crores put together. Let's say investment of close to 75,000 crores for the Gigafactories over the next 3 years. So that was the biggest announcement because. Reliance is now foraying into the clean energy sector, long-term prospects of becoming carbon neutral, and of course, changing the business model again and disrupting a new area, right? So that was the biggest announcement for the day. I think I would take that as the biggest announcement. Followed that will be the announcement of on the Saudi Aramco deal. Of course, clear-cut announcement with regards to valuation or what is the stake sale or how this is going to pan out is something which remains to be seen. Of course, the board membership was a very, very important step in that direction, is what I believe. So that would be the second most critical announcement. So these were the top two headline announcements that I think were very, very important today.
But when it comes to the investor's point of view, the shareholder's standpoint, what is it that they should keep an eye out for over the next 1 or 2 years? What is it, or which business is it that really matters most according to you?
See, so okay, let's look at it in this way. Okay, so Reliance has right now, let's say, three broad businesses at this point in time, which is the O2C business. The second is the Geo and the Geo Platforms business, which is the technological vertical. And the third one is the retail business. And pretty much everybody values these three businesses on an SATP basis, right? So that's the broad framework that anybody uses. The first and the largest business was, of course, the O2C business, which is the largest contributor to the EBITDA for the company. And then followed that by Geo and followed that by the retail business. O2C business valuations and value of the business has actually stagnated over the last 2 years. Multiple reasons, right? GRMs have been under pressure. There was the announcement of Saudi Aramco deal, which happened quite some time back. Progress has been very slow because of COVID, because of global challenges, multiple reasons why it has been slow. But right now, I think that's the most important business and how developments are going to take place in the O2C business. We have now a key announcement in place, right? Second is that the deal will be expeditiously executed over the next few months, is what we can understand. But more importantly, what we'll be watching out for is what kind of structure are we looking at, right? What amount of stake will Saudi Aramco will take? What valuation it will be at, and how the business will eventually be run, right? That's going to be a very, very important issue. Today, also, the chairman of the company did make the important announcement in the sense that the new business leaders are going to be next generation, right? So that was, I think, very, very important. Isha, Anant and Akash are going to lead the businesses going ahead. So that was very, very interesting how they are going to lead the businesses, how the businesses will be split between the three leaders, and how the management is going to happen with regards to with the strategic stakeholders. I think that
Hmm.
was another very interesting aspect that is going to keep investors very interested, right? So because eventually the value of the companies is going to be decided by how businesses will be run in the future, right? Because current valuations are are take into account what the future holds for us, or the future cash flows
Right.
which are going to be generated. So what kind of management will take over, what will be the structure of that management, are going to be the key aspects. Near term per se, I think the Aramco deal will still be very critical, and more importantly, the structure of the deal is going to be the most important thing that we'll be very watchful about.
Well, in the AGM speech, Mr. Mukesh Ambani had really talked in great detail about this new business, the very ambitious plans that they have. They've laid out a capex of about 75,000 crores. It's almost like giving a direction of future course and what lies ahead over the next many years for the company. There's of course new capex cycle, but also big plans to go green when it comes to energy space or when it comes to green chemicals. How should investors and especially long-term investors read into that? I mean, what should they expect? How is the company? How could the company, according to you, transform over the next few years?
See, I think these things are one is to look at it from a valuation perspective, whether these businesses are value accretive in the nature. And the second is, I think that these are like fairly simple things to look at, is what kind of ROE can a new business generate, right? So, uh, whatever Reliance does, they do it with lot of planning, and they don't do things half-hearted, right? That's one thing which
Mm,
is very strong about Reliance. If they are looking at a 75,000 crores capex, they might even put in more money if they see that business to be really yielding strong numbers. So if we look at the traditional petchem business and the O2C businesses, of course, these are businesses which primarily now fall into the category of utility, and I would say that the returns which can be generated in these businesses are fairly well known, and the expansion of that is very cyclical in nature. On the other hand, if I were to look at the new business that they entered into was telecom business. Telecom business has the capability of doing even a 40% ROE, right? That's what Bharti demonstrated in 2007 and 8. And in a three-player market, that kind of number is very much possible. Now it's going to
mm,
be very interesting, the new business venture that they are entering into, right? Which is into the clean energy space. What kind of ROE that can generate? Typically, if you look at any utility kind of business, an ROE of 18% is something which is very much possible, right? It's not
right.
something which is very difficult to achieve. But in the clean energy space, with an end-to-end integration with even storage batteries and so on and so forth in coming into play, we might be looking at a much higher ROE, right? So not just higher ROEs for the business as a whole, but more importantly, sustainability, right? So I think that's going to be the key aspect going ahead. So moving from fossil fuels to sustainable energy or clean energy means sustainability, which also means higher ROEs, but not just higher ROEs, but also higher multiples from a long-term point of view, and ability to attract a wide range of investors, like the
Right.
ESG investors put together. Right? So there are
Exactly.
multiple things which come into play, right? So to answer to you shortly, I think that's the most critical angle that we would be looking at, not just what it brings to the table in terms of
Hmm.
profitability, but also the suite of investors that they will be able to attract.
I was just coming to that because after the kind of announcements and plans that were laid out today, could ESG investors start looking at RIL in a completely new way?
See, of course, ESG investors have their own benchmarks.
Right.
Announcement of capex plan is one aspect to it, but having a play in that field, and what is the, because it's not just that you announce and there will be investors who would start coming in. It does depend upon what is the contribution of clean energy to the overall business, what are the initiatives that the company has taken, and it's not just environment, it also is about the other practices, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that this is a long term plan. This is not a short term plan, or this is not a 3 months plan, not a 6 months plan. This is a decadal plan that the company is trying to put in place, right? So that's the more important message here, and it essentially means that they are working on sustainability and being more cleaner in from a business perspective, environmental friendly, and from a long term perspective, having pretty much any kind of investor who would want to invest in a business in India which is growth oriented, which is compounding. Reliance will be one of those candidates, right? Whether you are in, at an ESG fund, you are looking at some other fund, right? Any investor would be keen to look at Reliance as an entity.
Well, from oils to chemicals to telecom, now to consumer space in a big way as well. Talk to us about how you see the earnings profile shift for the company going forward, because there is a huge amount of thrust on the consumer side of it. So, do you see a further tilt?
So again, short term, long term will be a challenge. Short term, of course, maybe we are hitting a good cycle in O2C business, especially in the petchem business, so that might contribute quite significantly over the next probably 1 year, 1.5 years. Difficult to say what can be the time frame for that. But over, let's say, if I were to take a fairly longer time frame, let's say 3 to 5 years time frame, definitely the telecom and the retail businesses are going to contribute more than the other business, right? So that's something which, because uh, these businesses are based on capacity utilization, so on and so forth, whereas the technology businesses are not hampered by capacity utilization, right? So there's a platform play. There are multiple aspects which come into the picture, right? So that's where I think that the contribution of these businesses will be much more significant than what will be that of O2C business.
Okay, what about telecom space? I mean, of course, there's the announcement of their ultra affordable smartphone now in association with Google. They're making great strides in the 5G space as well. So, do you think there could be further erosion of share from other telecom players to, or rather, in favor of Geo?
So that's been happening, right? So it's not
Yes.
something which is. But see, if you look at the telecom landscape, there is a very large market of 2G feature phones, right? So 2G is still very much in play in the Indian telecom market, and Jio is a primarily a 4G play, right? So that's where the
Yeah.
differentiation is. Vodafone still has a fairly large customer base. Bharti also has a large customer base in the 2G space. So they have to move the feature phones. That's where I think the business model is, right. So if they don't move the 2G subscribers from Vodafone and Bharti, then those 2G subscribers will just upgrade to the 3G or to a 4G play in the same network, right? So it's not that Bharti has a poor network and of course Vodafone has challenges, but I'm saying that the customers might upgrade the existing network, so you have to get those customers as quickly as possible. So my sense here is that this is going to be, of course, a 2G upgradation from the other telecom operators.
Hmm.
That's going to be the key play here. And having an ultra affordable smartphone as a product innovation, I think it can definitely work, right? So that's going to be the key play for the next probably 12 months.
Okay, all right. So one final question before I let you go, and something that all our viewers would also want to know. How is the stock likely to react tomorrow? How will it, how will the street digest all of the announcements, mostly growth-oriented ones that were made in today's speech? What is your sense?
Difficult to take a call on what the reaction of the stock will be tomorrow, but uh, overall, my sense is that there are more positives than negatives. Market could be slightly disappointed with not giving the exact details or spelling the details out for the Aramco deal, which was more important of a short-term trigger. So there could be some minor disappointment, but leave that aside. I feel that the stock should, over the next, I say, a couple of months, should react positively. Maybe today was the expiry day, so there was some bit of negative reaction. I think
Hmm.
tomorrow we should start seeing a long bit of happening again.
Any math you have done on the possible demerger? That's also something that could unlock significant amount of value for the different businesses, and the street has been awaiting for clarity on that for quite some time. In fact, some of our viewers are also posting questions about that.
Demerger, you mean from O2C and the
Retail
O2C
and yes.
telecom and so the maths is, of course, if you look at, let's say, the value of the business, value of the business is fairly well split across these three entities, which is essentially, if I were to look at roughly around right now, close to 40% of the value comes from Geo, and then I think so. Then another 40% would be coming from the O2C business, and 20% is from the retail business at this point in time. So I think that's primarily the split of these three businesses at this point in time.
All right, Mr. Kulkarni, great chatting with you. Thank you so much for explaining in great detail the various nuances of Mr. Mukesh Ambani's speech at today's AGM. And thank you once again to all of our viewers for tuning in.
Thank you.